Shalom everyone. In this video we are going to discuss the first book of the prophets called Joshua. Joshua was the person that took over the leadership role from Moshe towards the end of the Torah. There is also an opinion by the Ramban that Joshua actually wrote the last section of the Torah that details the death of Moshe. Joshua was actually also renamed by Moshe in the Torah, and thus there is two names for Joshua in the Torah. The first being Hosea and the second being Joshua, which is the name that many of us know him by. So Joshua actually wrote most of the book of Joshua, with the last part dealing with the death and burial of Joshua being written by Pinchas, who you might also remember from the Torah. The book of Joshua covers a time period of 28 years. The book of Joshua takes place on the bank of the river Jordan, as the Jews were about to enter the land, as well as beginning the conquest of the land of Israel. So who was the person Joshua? As we know from the Torah, he was the primary student of Moshe. And the Talmud, which is the Jewish oral law, actually says very nice things about Joshua, as it states in Bava Basra 75, where it says, if the face of Moshe was like the sun, then the face of Joshua was like the moon, which basically reflects the light of the sun. Now, the whole story of Moshe's face being like the sun is from the story in the Torah where Moshe came down from Mount Sinai and his face was radiant because he spent 40 days and 40 nights with Hashem. Now, the book of Joshua can be divided into three parts. The first part is called Kibush in Hebrew, which basically means the conquest of the land of Israel. And this first part of the book of Joshua takes 7 years. It starts with Joshua assuming the leadership role of the Jewish people as they are about to enter the land of Israel. At this point in time, Joshua was 82 years old. Starting at chapter 2 verse 1, it deals with the mission of the spies going into the city of Jericho. In chapter 3 verse 1, it deals with the Jews crossing the Jordan River. In chapter 5 verse 2, it deals with the circumcision of the Jewish people, as well as setting up camp in Gilgal. In chapter 6 verse 1, we have the fall of Jericho. Chapter 7 verse 1, we have the conquest against the city of Ai. In chapter 9 verse 1, we have the treaty with the people of Givon. In chapter 10 verse 1, we have the conquest of the south of Israel. In chapter 11 verse 1, we have the conquest of the north of Israel. And in chapter 11 verse 16, we have a summary of the conquest of the land of Israel. The second part of the book of Joshua is called Nachalah, which means the settling of the land of Israel. And this settling of the land of Israel takes about 21 years to complete. In chapter 13 verse 1, it starts with the distribution of the land east of the Jordan River to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half the tribe of Manasseh. Many of you would also remember this story from the Torah. In chapter 15 verse 1, it goes on to detail the distribution of the land to the rest of the tribes of Israel, namely Yehudah, Ephraim, and the other half of the tribe of Manasseh. At this point also, it concludes another 7 years from the start of part 2 of this book of Joshua, which took place in Gilgal. From here on until the end of the book of Joshua, it takes another 14 years, and the rest of the book is taking place in Shiloh. In chapter 18 verse 1, it starts with the distribution of the land of Israel to the remaining tribes, namely Benjamin, Shimon, Zebulon, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan. In chapter 20 verse 1, it covers the assignment of refugee cities within the land of Israel. In chapter 21 verse 1, it covers the assignment of cities for the Leviim, which was the family of Moshe, as well as the Kohanim, who was the family of Aaron, Moshe's brother. In chapter 22 verse 1, it finishes off with the departure of the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and half of the tribe of Manasseh towards the east of the Jordan River. The third and the last part of the book of Joshua, in chapter 23 verse 1, deals with the farewell speech of Joshua, as well as in chapter 24 verse 25, the covenant that was made at Shechem. In chapter 24 verse 29, it deals with the death of Joshua as well as his burial at the age of 110. If you want to learn more what a prophet actually is and how prophecy actually works, then you should definitely watch this video next. May you all continue to be blessed in everything that you do. Shavua Tov.